Ooh, this is a good one if I can get it out. I've been having a hard time reconciling something in my mind. You know, the stuff I keep seeing and then, anyway. Oh, God, please help me get it back out. They just showed it in a way that helped a lot. Because it was showing it like there's two types of people in this world. People who love themselves and people who hate themselves. And because they hate themselves, they hate people who love themselves. And so it did make it feel like this two sides, this resistance, this exhaustion. And but the side that loved themselves just kept rising up. They didn't participate. So then it almost looked like the bad guys, the ones that hated themselves, were almost constantly uplifting those who loved themselves, because it was like forcing them to continually go higher. And okay, but that wasn't the point of this. It was, okay, so it was showing the two, and then an energy came through and said something to me. It was showing all types of different fields, actually, and different art forms and the way people express themselves. But it was almost getting like harsher, crueler, worse, like more. It was at first showing like Hollywood, and how it started off by making people's dreams come true and turning their fantasy into a manifested reality of like a something of substance, and just share it with others. But then they kept pushing the envelope, pushing the ante, almost normalizing things, and then subconsciously putting stuff into other people. It became so twisted versus, and it was like the way they were showing this, I have no idea how this goes. I'm just telling you what the vision was. It was like other artists didn't want to necessarily naysay other artists, because they were like, well, shit, nobody saw my vision before the end either. So it's like, I'm going to give that same grace, even though they felt a snag or felt like it was wrong. And at the end, it was like, when is enough, right? Like, this is no longer indulging in somebody else's art form. This is harmful, right? Like it's throwing up garbage onto others. It ends up being misused. And so then it kept morphing into other things. And then, oh God. And then, I'm trying to recall it all because it was fairly quick. It was like people who hated themselves so much kept making it harder on themselves and hating themselves, like doing more awful things to be like, can you love us now if we're all one? If we're all one, can you love us now? Can you love us now? Almost making it harder. And it was like every time they were forgiven, accepted, and loved, they were like, that can't be. That's wrong. I'm terrible. I'm awful. I'm horrific. You can't possibly forgive me. You can't possibly love me. Let me make it worse. And it was like, when is fucking enough? When is it enough? Right? It's like, you have to fucking love yourself. And so it was an energy that came through and then started to ask me specifically, like, can you forgive me now? Or can you accept me now? Or something. It was just awful. And I said, you know what? That's not the real question here. That's not the real question. My job is to love myself. Your job is to love yourself. The real question is, can you love yourself? Can you forgive yourself? Can you do your own work? That's your work to do. So you're only making it harder on yourself to love yourself the more you choose to do things that are not in alignment with yourself. It's like you're trying to push the envelope to get others to love you. That's still seeking outside oneself. You're asking all the wrong fucking questions. Stop putting your shit on other people to prove it's such a fucked up way to look at it, because it's almost like they want to prove how unworthy they are by being horrific to only force people to accept them. But they make it impossible for people to accept them. They make it impossible because they hate themselves, and they make it harder and harder for them to love themselves. So then they make it harder and harder for everybody else to love them. Do you see what I'm saying? It's so fucking twisted. But this is the problem. This is why everybody has to do their own work, and everybody has to learn to love themselves and figure out what that means. And more people have to do that work so that you can be that example, especially for young people to start seeing, like, yes, loving yourself, honoring yourself, not letting people walk all over you or dictate you or control you or peer pressure you or force you to please them, right? It's like everybody needs to learn how to please themselves, to figure out how to fill up their own buckets from the inside out. And it does take a while because we're all so tangled down here and we're so forced to, it's like training, conditioning to accept and allow things that we do not want to accept and allow. And then we start to resist them and push against them, which just calls it in more and more and more. And so we're so flipped and topsy-turvy. And it's like everybody has to stop. It's not getting anybody where anybody wants to go. You have to love yourself. You have to do your own work. It's nobody else's job to do your work, and it's nobody else's job to love you. It's your job to love you. That's the test down here. How much do you love yourself? That's the test. How much do you love yourself? And many people will show you just the opposite. They'll show you how much they hate themselves, how they want to get out of themselves. They want to get away from themselves. And they'll do everything they can to escape themselves. And guess what? You can never escape yourself. This is why they get to addictions and drugs and sex and alcohol and everything else, and it never works. Why doesn't it work? Because you can't ever escape yourself. You can't escape your mind. You have to turn and face it. You have to fight through all that stuff. It's only going to get louder and harder, louder and harder, louder and harder. It's awful. And then you die off and come right back to where you left off. So your next life, when you haven't learned any of those fucking lessons, eventually you're going to be faced with the same shit time and again. So it's like, do you want, it's like, no, it's not going to be easy. Nope. Some of you have become so monstrously hating yourselves that you have turned into the monsters that you hate. And so you're going to have to figure out how to love those monsters. You're going to have to figure out how to absorb those monsters. You're going to have to figure out how to justify those scales, balance it out, reason. You're going to have to work with yourself and unconditional love, the highest vibration of all, which you can't reach in your 3D form. You can't reach unconditional love because you've been dwelling in hatred and in it's like the devildom, right? Like down in the depths of hell for so long. That's what you're familiar with. And we have all made it so comfortable and normal to be uncomfortable, living in hell, living in tolerating. We've made that so comfortable and so familiar that we think it's normal, and we have normalized it. And so it was a big one for me when this energy came through, because I think it was a big one for me because I do tend to take on other people's problems for them. And it was like, no more. No, you're your problem. I'm my problem. We all have our own problems. You have to learn how to love yourself. It's irrelevant whether I love you or not anyway. It's not even going to satisfy you. That's why people have these like sex addictions. It's not, they confuse sex with love. They confuse so many things. So they keep thinking they're getting accepted and loved with sex. So they run around and have sex with everybody. And even if they receive love from those people who do pour their heart out onto them, they don't feel it. It doesn't satiate them. They don't believe them. Because how could you? How could you love a monster like that? Because they don't love themselves. They hate themselves. How could anybody else love them? They can't. So it doesn't satiate them. This is why it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. You could tell them all day long, but you'll waste your life away. You'll wither away and die with them. They can't ever hear it until they do their own work. They have to do their own work. If they don't go within and figure that stuff the fuck out, they'll just drag you down with them. That's what ends up happening. So it's like, I mean, you know what's a good example is you'll see parents with children that are addicts. Teens, right? They just get wildly out of control. And they do everything they can to help these teens. And sometimes it works, right? Like the first time or the second time, like they really give it a go. They try to get them the right help. They try to, and it's like, what is the right help, right? To me, it's the right help is showing them how spectacular they are, showing them, mirroring back to them the good in them, not the bad in them, not shaming them, blaming them, reminding them how spectacular they are, pulling out their talents again, reminding them, and it's like never slipping from that, right? If they were instilled with that, it's such a strong constitution early, it might not be as much of a problem later on. I don't know. Nonetheless, you'll see these parents end up, next thing you know, they work their whole lives, and then they go down with the kids. The kids start stealing from them. They have to take out mortgages. It's a whole damn nightmare. And then it's the idea of the kid so desperately needs attention, they'll take the bad attention. And that's what ends up happening, is the parents' entire lives and all their friends' lives and all their family and extended, it all revolves around this one person's addiction, who's screaming they don't want anybody, but it's like they can't leave themselves. They hate themselves so much. So they have to be shown that who they really are again. They've forgotten who they are. They've lost themselves. They've forgotten that they're a part of unconditional love. They hate themselves so much, but they have to want it, and they have to do that work. Otherwise, they're going to drag everybody down with them, unless everybody around them starts to love themselves and say, I'm cutting the cords. I love you so much, but you have to love yourself, and you have to want to do the work. It is a fine line, and it is tough, right? Because many people can't do it. They can't do it, so they'll lose their life. They'll give up their life for their kids, who are going to just drag them down. It's what happens. We see it all the time, and it's a horror story. And it's like, why aren't there answers out there? There are answers out there. Everybody has to learn how to love themselves and figure out what the fuck that means and untangle the knotted mess within their own minds. And it's not easy work to do, because a lot of times people end up giving up because it's not a short-term work. It's something you have to do consistently, and you have to stand strong in it consistently, and especially in a world that is constantly inundating you and bombarding you to leave yourself, to look outside yourself, to seek pleasures and enjoy from that which is outside of you. And so you're faced with temptation 24/7. So it's like, you either get to the point where you love yourself so much that the temptation falls flat, or you don't. The choice is yours. A good example of that is, like, say you grow up on all chemical food, right? You're addicted to all these chemicals, this processed food. It is an addiction. It's your body has normalized that salt and those chemicals, and it's an addiction. You need more. And so to break that habit is no fucking joke. And when you do, and you've committed after, weaning off, or whatever, diet you work with your doctor on, or whatever plan you come up with, and you start to have only real live fruits and vegetables, only organic, only grown from the earth, you do this. Once your body has then normalized that, it starts to crave that. And you start, and what's awful is usually there's also, in that process of detoxing, you usually go through such horrific symptoms of like flu symptoms and everything else. Your body's like screaming with, it's like revolting, like, no, give me the salt, give me the sugar, give me the crap. It like can't handle it. It's like horrific. It is a drug, right? It's just like you see those horror stories of people getting off of drugs. It's just like that with even, the chemicals and the drugs and food. And so it's that same idea. But then once you get to the other side of that, and once you have really cleaned up your diet and you really are having healthy all the time, you do not crave the old like you used to. And every now and then when you do and you have it, you usually do get sick, or you something will happen that you're like, oh yeah, that's the reminder of why that is no good for me, right? Like I thought I wanted it. I don't know what triggered that memory, but sometimes it's good to look at that too, by the way, right? Like for instance, if you wanted something like creamy, well, it's like the idea of you want to nurse, right? You nurse from your mother. You want the nourishment, right? You want that, you need that loving care. And so you turn to that milky substance, right? Ice cream or whatever, to fulfill that need. So it's like, well, then fulfill the need. Don't substitute it, right? Figure out how to nourish yourself properly. Give yourself that love and that care and that tenderness, that gentleness with oneself. It's the idea of like learning how to self-soothe. And Anyway, I feel like I could go on, but it helped me because I really was having a hard time forgiving a lot of things that I've seen lately in the media and what's going on. And it did feel good to be like, that's not my job. And I just have to love myself, and they have to learn how to love themselves. And it's not a question of, it's like the wrong question, right? It's not how can I forgive you? It's how can you forgive you? How can you live with you? How can you love you? How can you figure out how to love you? Stop revolting yourself. Stop trying to make it harder for you to love you. And again, I still can't seem to say that the piece they want me to say, which is like, it's like all these kids and all these adults and all these like sickos out there who, it's like they hate themselves so much, but they so desperately want to be loved, but they're doing all the wrong things to be loved. But they also, it's almost like they know they're making it harder. They know they're making it impossible. It's almost like they're testing God, right? It's almost like they're like, see, God, how could you possibly have made me this monster? How could you possibly love me now? How could you possibly? It's like, well, do you want me to or not? And it's like deep down, they desperately do, but they can't love themselves. And they can't seem to figure out, like, why does God keep loving me then? What's wrong? Like, what's wrong with God then? What's wrong with God? How could he still be loving me unconditionally? What the fuck? How bad do I have to be? How horrible, how horrific does it have to get before God says enough? And it's like, no, that's not the question. The question is, how bad does it have to be for you to say enough, for you to love you, for you to do the cleanup work? How hard do you want to make it on yourself? Why are you making it more difficult on yourself? Why are you engaging in that? Why are you lying to yourself? Why do you keep harming yourself and so many others? So it's like people have to ask themselves the right question. Stop forcing everybody else to answer your questions. Answer your own fucking questions. Go within and listen to what the fuck you're telling yourself and unravel those knots. I mean, I'm telling you, some of these people are so fucking twisted. Thanks so much for tuning in and listening. You can now purchase an audio journey with me using the link below.